Arizona, Alabama, another great game for both of these teams coming off of just a gauntlet schedule from both of these teams. I feel like we saw both of these teams play Purdue like in the last 7 days because we essentially did. And now here they are in a neutral site game, if you can call it neutral, in Arizona, in Phoenix, at the Footprint Center, whatever that is. Do you know what the Footprint Center is?
No, I have no idea. But um, it is a way for Arizona to get one of those crazy home games that are not actually a home game uh, for the net. Do it for the net. Everything's for the net. So, oh wait, geez, it was Talking Stick Arena. I didn't realize that they had renamed it the Footprint Center.
Oh, there we go. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
so
was
it's where
I
the
was
Suns
like, what
play.
is this? Got it. I was like, what is this?
I don't pay
Um,
attention to the NBA clearly because the Knicks suck, except for that one random game that they got the other day. But outside of that, um, not an NBA guy, and it shows.
Yeah, well, that's why we're a college basketball show here. So, all right, both these teams lost to Purdue. Both these teams gave Purdue a reasonable run for their money. Alabama followed up the Purdue loss with a loss to Creighton, competitive game at Creighton, but a really weird game at Creighton. Ryan Kalkbrenner was out for much of the first half. They kind of had chances to win the game and then just didn't look like the better team at all in the second half once Calc was back in. This Alabama team, though, going back a little further, back to Thanksgiving, they've only won 2 of their last 6 games. Their best win in that span was Oregon on a neutral floor. Starting to kind of be one of those things where like this team's ninth on KenPom right now, 6-4. But I'm having a harder and harder time buying that until they beat someone and not just play somebody tough.
They are 1-4 against KenPom top 50 teams. The only top 50 team they beat is number 48 Indiana State, which has received some love recently, but certainly not the gauntlet that they went through over the past 3 or 4 weeks, where they had Ohio State, Clemson, Purdue, and Creighton, which were all losses. And I think for the most part, all, with the exception of Creighton, all multi-score losses. So it's been a tough stretch for Alabama, and I think we will, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but they are facing their second toughest test of the season in this game.
Arizona. I still think this team's a step below UConn and Purdue. That's where I landed on this. I know you and I did the Purdue review. We kind of talked about this already. Have your thoughts changed at all? Do you still have this team near or in the top tier of the best teams in the country?
They're the one that's teetering on the edge for me. I think it's Purdue and UConn clearly at the top, and this Arizona team, for me, I think they have shown that they belong in that top tier of teams. I also don't necessarily trust it as much as I trust Purdue and UConn and what they've shown. Um, and this is going to be another great test. These are two teams that play at similar speeds. Um, they both like to get up and down the floor. They both like to play through their guards primarily. I know Arizona has some bigs, but they do like to play primarily through Love and Boswell, and then get Ballo and Keisha Johnson the ball in key and good positions to score. So I don't know if I would say my opinion has changed. I think this game could go a long way in changing that opinion.
Offensively, these teams are extremely similar, and these teams both profile as elite. Alabama has the number 1 ranked offense in the country. Arizona has the number 6 ranked offense in the country. You can go up and down the stats. Very similar. Like their strengths are each other's strengths. The minor differences here, and I say minor because they really are extremely similar, but the two biggest differences I can find. Alabama doesn't turn the ball over as much as Arizona does. They're both good, but Alabama's better. And then Alabama's better from the free throw line. That's about it.
And
Alabama
and
shoots way more threes too.
yeah, I mean Arizona plays that Gonzaga style offense ish. It's a variation on the style of offense that Gonzaga played the last couple of years that Tommy Lloyd was there, where they love to get out in transition, Arizona loves to force turnovers, rebound the ball on defense, get out in transition, and they don't shoot threes in transition. They get at the rim, they get easy buckets. It's the reason why Arizona is a top 10 field goal percentage team in the country right now. It is because they do take the easy buckets when they get them. Alabama obviously gets to the 3-point lines, threes and layups, but they shoot a lot more threes. I think Arizona's offense, while it might not be as efficient as Alabama's per the metrics, I think it's a lot more trustworthy because as we've seen with Alabama, as we've seen with Creighton this year, but as we've seen with Alabama the last couple of years, shooting all those threes can kick you in the ass if you're not making them. And Arizona isn't as susceptible to poor shooting nights because of the way they play offense.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch these two offenses go back and forth because both are capable of just running an opposing defense out of the gym. If you had to pick one, like in a vacuum, just separated from each other, which offense do you believe is better?
Arizona's.
Okay.
I think is better.
Okay.
I believe Arizona's is better. I think Alabama's is too reliant on a select group of players. I think if you go up and down Arizona's roster, if you put the ball in almost anyone in that rotation's hands on offense, you're trusting them to make a play. Where Alabama, I just don't know if I trust every single player in that rotation to make a play against the top teams in the country.
Yeah. Okay. I think I might disagree with you there. I think that's really the only thing I'm disagreeing with you on as you're framing this game up, though. I think I would take Alabama's offense strictly because I like that they shoot more threes. That said, I don't love the Alabama personnel of this team. Like, I think Mark Sears is very good. I don't really love anybody else on an individual level. Like, I think Grant Nelson's fine. I think he might have some issues against the better teams in SEC play, honestly, when he has to stack up against better front courts. I think Aaron Estrada is hot and cold. When he's hot, he's certainly great and makes them very potent. When he's cold, I think he kind of shies away from things. And outside of that, like, Rylan Griffin's good. I like him as a role player. I kind of thought there could be a bigger leap from him coming than what we've seen thus far this year. And the rotation at center leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. Arizona does not have a rotation at center. They have Oumar Ballo, who's one of the best bigs in the country. With that said, to me, on paper, that's the biggest mismatch in this game, would be Arizona center against Alabama's trio of revolving door. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's just Ballo. Krivas has come in key moments. I think the game where you saw him play the fewest minutes was against Purdue. But again, he's not, while he's taller than Ballo, he's not as man. Obviously, he's not as grown as Oumar Ballo has become. And so if you're trusting one of them and Oumar Ballo wasn't even really fouling a ton in that game. So if you're trusting one of them on the court against Edey, you're going to keep Ballo in the game as much as possible. But I agree. I think it's the biggest mismatch. I think specifically on Arizona's offensive end, it's the biggest mismatch because defensively, Grant Nelson, with his ability to at least demand respect from the perimeter, you can maybe pull Oumar Ballo away from the basket a little bit and do some things that way. But Oumar Ballo, I think, is going to do to Grant Nelson offensively kind of what Zach Edey did to him in the game against Purdue, which is dominate positioning in that low block and just go to work when he gets those opportunities. And he's not a high usage big like Edey is, but when given the opportunities, when he wins position, those guards are really good at getting Ballo the ball.
Yeah, I think this is a game that Ballo can really win on the boards too. Alabama likes to crash the boards offensively, but I don't think they're going to have a ton of success. Arizona is number one in the country at preventing offensive rebounds. And then on the flip side, Alabama's okay at preventing offensive boards. Arizona likes to feast there. They're not elite at it, but they're very good at it. And this seems like a personnel matchup, one where Ballo could definitely hit double-figure rebounds. So if you had to pick a guard, we played the pick a guard game for Purdue, Arizona. If you had to pick a guard in this game, which guard are you turning the ball to?
So, and I made a list, Greg. I told you I made a list of point guards. Braden Smith ended up fifth.
Okay.
So there's that. I disqualified Caleb Love. I basically went into Ken Palm, and if they weren't listed as the primary point guard, I eliminated them, which eliminated some pretty good guards that, Max Abmas would be the point guard on almost every team except for Texas, and Caleb Love, same thing. Geez, I would still take Caleb Love by a smidge over Mark Sears. But I think if you're looking at Arizona, it's like Caleb Love, Mark Sears, and then every other Arizona guard before I get to like an Aaron Estrada or someone, or Rylan Griffin or someone like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's spot on. A bunch of good guards, which should make for a fun game. But yeah, if they're at their best, I think the Arizona backcourt has an edge. I think the front court has a clear edge. I think on the wings, they have an edge. To me, this is Arizona's game to lose. It's in Arizona, obviously. Both teams desperately need a win, which should make this a very entertaining game, because I think both teams, when desperate, are very good basketball teams. And I think we're going to see them both leave it all out on the floor. Give me your prediction. Ken Palm has Arizona by 6 points in this game, a high-scoring game, 91-85. What do you think happens?
I'm going to take Arizona by more than 6. I think this is a game where Arizona's going to play focused. They're coming off a loss where they not only lost to, as the number 1 seed, they lost, or number 1 team, they lost that number 1 ranking. They want to prove that they belong with the big boys, or continue to prove they belong with the big boys. This would probably be, on paper, at least from the metrics perspective, their best win. And you said that there's a mismatch at the 5. Like, I think Keisha Johnson against that revolving door of 4s for Alabama is also a huge mismatch. Like, that front court for Alabama is clearly better than the front court for Arizona, is clearly better than the front court for Alabama. And the guards are probably in Arizona's favor. But it's not a clear advantage for Alabama. So, and it's at home for Arizona. So give me Arizona by like 14. I think there's going to be a stretch in that second half, similar to what we saw against Purdue, where Arizona goes on like a 15-4 run or something like that and just breaks this game wide open.
Yeah, I think that's a good game script. I think there's a chance that we see Alabama, maybe for the first time this season, look around and doubt themselves a little bit in this game. I know that's psychological, but there were moments in the second half against the Creighton, or in the Creighton game, where the door was wide open for Alabama to run through it and take it. And they didn't know if Calc was coming back in the game. That was at the end of the first half, and they kind of just let Creighton hang around. Nobody could stop each other. But in the early parts of the second half, even with Calc in the game, Creighton kind of was cold. I think Alabama had built like a 6-point lead. They just had multiple possessions in a row with huge defensive breakdowns, with offensive issues you rarely see Alabama make, where they kind of like were dribbling out the shot clock and nobody knew where the ball was supposed to go. And it just kind of, I don't know. I'm watching this unfold like this is not what I would expect from a Nate Oates team, given what we've seen the last couple of years. Like, when they have chances, they normally take them. And I think this year's team is notably less talented than previous Alabama teams. And I think there's a little bit of self-doubt going on from everybody on the team that's not Mark Sears about, one, how good this team is, given the fact that they've now lost 4 of their 6 games, but 2, their own individual games and how they fit in the SEC against the best teams in the country. Like, to me, if there's a team in the country that needs a get-right game that's just in Tuscaloosa against a bad team, it's Alabama. And that's coming this Saturday. They play Eastern Kentucky. But to have to go to Phoenix off the heels of Purdue and Creighton, I think it's just a brutal break for an Alabama team that is not in the same stratosphere as Arizona talent-wise. So I'm going to back the Wildcats big here. I will be surprised if this is not a comfortable win for Tommy Lloyd's group. That said, Alabama certainly has a lot of potential. They can turn it around. I won't be shocked if they find a way to win this game. But yeah, I don't think this is a good spot for the Tide. We'll see.
No, they're both great offenses. Arizona has a great defense. Alabama gives up really high efficiency numbers to its opponents on the defensive end. Like you said, it's basically you take Mark Sears, who was the 3rd option last year for Alabama. You put him in the first option and he's not a Brandon Miller, or even really a Javon Quinterly. And you didn't back that up with a second or third option that was even close to the level of Quinterly and Sears last year. So, like, in order for Alabama to beat Arizona, one of two things has to happen. Like, they just have to go nuclear from three in the same way that UConn did in that first half against Gonzaga, or it has to be like the Mark Sears legacy game. And the perimeter defense from Arizona, I think, is just too good to allow either of those two things to happen. So I would be surprised too if this wasn't I'd go as far as to say I'd be surprised if this isn't a double-digit win for Arizona, because I think they're just gonna run Alabama off the court.
That's right where I'm at as well, my friend. All right, that's Connor Hope from Heat Check CBB. I'm GregWaddell from Sleepers Media. We will have a recap up for this game as well. Subscribe to the Sleepers Media channel so that you see all of our videos on college basketball's biggest games this season.